From Creamer Media in Johannesburg, this is the Real Economy Report. Steelmaker ArcelorMittal South Africa will spend more than 2 billion rand over the next 5 years to ensure that all its operations are compliant with the country's increasingly stringent environmental legislation. Environmental GM Siegfried Spanig tells us more.
In terms of the new Air Quality Act, I'd say roughly within the next 5 years, I think most of the work will be focused on our coke making operations, so it's just over R1 billion. Some of these legacy issues will take some time to be solved. At Van der Bijl Park we've made huge progress in terms of remediation of contaminated land, as you will see just now. It took us a long time to get going as well, just to identify the right methods and the most effective methods. Obviously costs also had to be considered, and we're quite happy to say that at this stage, or now, we've actually found the right bacteria to actually utilize in treating some of the organically polluted land.
Spanig also tells us about the significant effect that government's proposed carbon tax would have on the bottom lines of steelmakers in South Africa.
Well, currently the CO2 taxation proposal that was issued by National Treasury is not feasible, and it will actually have harsh consequences for our company from a financial point of view. And especially during bad times, the taxation figure will come close to our EBITDA figures. The current proposal that is on the table basically features a taxation on direct emissions from the very first ton being emitted at a modest rate. Treasury considers that a modest rate of roughly about $15 per ton. Now, if you are a facility that emits 12 million tons of CO2 per annum, that's only direct emissions. If you do the calculation, I mean, that's a lot of money, which will definitely affect the bottom line of a company. We are busy having discussions with National Treasury to have the taxation system restructured. We are not against a taxation system, but it definitely needs to be restructured. And what we are proposing is that a certain threshold of CO2 emissions is allocated to the company based on international best practices. And should such a threshold be exceeded, then National Treasury or the government could actually tax us on such an exceedance.
Other news making headlines this week includes the announcement that there will be no green earmarking plan for carbon tax revenue. MTN upgrades its network for mobile broadband, and moving freight to rail could offset higher costs due to carbon taxing. Should South Africa, which produced about 500 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalents yearly, move ahead with the implementation of a carbon tax, the revenue generated won't necessarily be set aside specifically for environmental projects.
The imposition of a tax requires that that money is spent in a certain way. And one of the common misconceptions is that an environmental tax that is imposed, that revenues should be used to finance specific environmental activities associated with the implementation of the tax. The Treasury policy differs from this, and the reason is that we have a whole range of priorities for South Africa, providing education, reducing poverty, etc. And to the extent that we earmark revenues from a specific tax, we introduce rigidities within the budgetary process. And I think that is the public finance textbook theory of earmarking.
MTN South Africa MD Karel Pienaar says that never before in the history of the company has MTN South Africa been making so many changes to its infrastructure.
If you look at our capitalization this year, it's probably going to be in the order of 3 to 5 billion. But on top of that, at any one stage, we got probably 3 to 4 billion worth of work in progress as well on top of that. So if you look at the past 2-3 years, we've invested an order of 13 billion, all in preparation for that. This is just MTN South Africa. If you look at the group, that number grows to just below 30 billion. So huge investor in this future mobile broadband infrastructure.
The proposed carbon tax will have a significant impact on South Africa's transport industry and could potentially lead to a rail renaissance, with some industry players proposing an intermodal solution for transporting freight.
In this country, we need more rail-centric product on rail. But we also need efficient rail systems in this country. And we need rail and road to work together in harmony, in an integrated manner, to provide the lowest total cost.
That's Creamer Media's Real Economy Report. Join us again next week for more news and insights into South Africa's real economy.